This is Ryan and Michelle, and welcome to the Celebrate Marriage Cast, where we hope to restore and reclaim godly marriages through honest and real conversations.
Welcome to episode 8. We are Michelle and Ryan. It's great to have you here with us today. And we have some guests with us in the studio. We would like to introduce Nick and Alison Ovenden. They are fellow celebrators, business people in the community. And Ryan, you guys actually served together in the kids ministry for a while too, right?
Yeah,
6 years together.
Years, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So welcome.
Yes, welcome, Ovenden. So just a little bit more about you guys, and then feel free to jump in.
Yeah, no problem.
This is not...
Welcome to our show, you
Yeah,
guys.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thanks for having us.
Feel so honored to be the first guests, speakers on the show, or not speakers, but guests on the show.
Yes, yeah. Our first celebrators. So our first Celebrate guest speakers. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So a little bit more about you guys. Nick, president of Great Life. If you are in Sioux Falls, you probably have seen a Great Life location or something to do with Great Life.
We hope so anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then literally everywhere, which is awesome. And Allie, you are an attorney serving as senior legal counsel at your company. Mm-hmm. And you guys have 2 daughters, 8 and 6, mm-hmm. which is awesome. And you love to watch their activities, be involved with them. And so we're going to talk kind of more about that today. But again, like Michelle said, welcome. So,
and I just have a question to ask here too. So Nick, you guys sent us we had some questions we asked you before the show. And Nick, Allie, you were Celebrate members just like us. And I feel like people would think this is kind of fun to hear. But first of all, you've been married for how long? Tell our listeners.
15 years.
Yep.
Wow.
15 years.
I was quizzing her actually
both got it
because
right.
I was going to say usually no offense, but usually I get this right and she forgets.
Well, I just have to do the countdown. I know what year we were married, and I know what year it is now. I just had to do the countdown.
Yeah, quick
usually.
math. And you're at the decade and a half mark. So that's like 15. Nice round number there.
Yes, exactly.
Question though. So Nick, you had said that in your dating relationship, it was a few years in the making. And I was wondering if you guys would share that story.
There's a conflict that is with this story. I just want to preface that because we remember things differently.
Okay.
Well, you can start.
So
You can start. I'll
actually,
see
the
if
first
if
time
it's
we
correct.
met, apparently she didn't remember that. So I didn't have a very good first impression. But one of our friends, our mutual friends, thought that we would be a good couple, and she ended up introducing us in a dorm room with a bunch of friends, and she wanted nothing to do with me. So I was like the stubborn guy I was. I'm like, fine, she doesn't want anything to do with me. I don't want anything to do with her. And a couple years later go by, and I'm like, it wasn't until I think 2 or 3 years when we actually started hanging out and talking, and I was like, okay, maybe she's pretty cool.
Not as bad as you thought. Yeah, I don't remember that first introduction. I do remember that my friend wanted us to be together and thought we'd be a good couple. I do remember that, but I don't remember that introduction that you so vividly do remember.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that story. It's neat because Ryan and I have a similar story. We had a mutual friend, my friend, your coworker, that had tried to set us up for a year. And we both kept telling her, no, leave us alone. No. And I think it's interesting how sometimes maybe our friends know us better than we know ourselves because look at us now.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we kept putting it off too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. So very awesome.
Cool.
Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah. So we want to just kind of talk to you guys a little bit. Throughout marriage, I think you guys would agree. There's different stages, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have this first stage where you meet, and it's just the two of you, right? And then kids, career, and aging as you get older, and then it's moving into different stages, retirement, and all of that. Really, we're probably in similar spots. I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to ask because that's not
But with
polite,
the kids, elementary age kids.
With elementary age kids, you kind of have this, and maybe it's not a balance. I don't think that's the right word, but this, you have a career, you're building a career, and you have kids. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people in marriage have this, it's almost like a battle. Like you can't have both. Mm-hmm. Or, you're competing one against the other. Mm-hmm. What does that look like for you guys? Obviously, you're building very, very successful careers, and you're raising two kids.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for you guys?
I'll jump in here. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster with that, to be honest with you. So I think when we moved back, it's been almost 10 years now that we moved back to Sioux Falls, and I've been at Great Life since then. But when we started having kids and we had Harper for the first time, Allie was in a very successful career with law, and then we had a conversation of, hey, she wanted to take a step back and be at home with our daughter, and it's something that we decided was a good fit for us at that time. We downsized houses, and we had just built a brand new house of our dreams, and then ended up moving back. Actually, Glenn Loy came and spoke to celebrate about downsizing and
Simplifying.
So
simplifying.
Pastor Keith, our founding senior pastor, Keith Loy, his father is
His
Glenn
father,
Loy.
yeah. So his father came in and spoke and did a message, and both of us walked out in the parking lot and got in the car. We kind of looked at each other and go, I think we're supposed to sell our house.
Wow.
And we put it on the market, and we were really nervous because of what people would think of us because we just built this house. We'd lived in there for maybe 6 months.
Yeah, it was less than a year.
Wow.
Mhm.
And
Probably still had boxes to unpack. I'm
we did.
oh,
yeah.
We did, which was nice. I guess half of it was boxed
Hey,
up still.
there you go.
Yeah.
But we ended up selling, and Allie got to stay at home with our daughter for a little while, and then quickly realized, well, after a year or so, that she had more to give to both. So it's been a balancing act, but I don't want to speak for her, but it's been one of the things that it's been really fun for me as a husband to see is how she can balance work and the kids and being an incredible mom at the same time. And it's a challenge because sometimes it doesn't always feel like you can succeed with that, with both. But she gets out there and she's a rock star mom. And not only does she do those two things, but she's able to find time to coach the girls in soccer and in basketball.
Cool.
So,
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, it
Even
is
in the
nice.
rain, in 45 degrees in the
Last
rain,
night,
it's still
yes.
fun to watch.
Yeah, that's-
Our daughter informed us the other week at our son's soccer game. She's like, "This is why I played volleyball, indoor sports."
Indoor
I guess
sports
you
all
say
the
that for
way.
basketball, but yeah,
Yes,
you're both
yeah.
athletes, so that's really cool that you're coaching now, Allie. I didn't know that. That's neat.
Yeah. I felt it's just fun for me to get out there, and I'm there anyway, and use my former knowledge and experience to coach them too.
Pour into them.
Yeah, exactly. So just another way to touch base with the kids, and in a different, I can't think of the word, but
like capacity.
yes, thank
or-
you. That's
yeah.
the word. Like in a different
Yeah.
capacity. Obviously, they see
Yeah.
me as mom all the time, but it's fun to then step out of there and be a coach to them and to their teammates.
Yeah.
So, it's fun. But yeah, I mean, that just to Nick's point, that was a little bit of a crazy time. But I think to your point, Ryan, there's just so many competing things that compete for your attention and compete for your time. And I think for us, the most important thing was setting priorities, and when I made that decision to step back, to Nick's point, I was an attorney. I was in a private practice and a law firm and kind of moving way up the firm. But it kind of just took some time for us to step back and say, well, what is most important
Yeah.
to us? And at that time, my career was not the most important thing. And I was okay with taking a step back and getting to spend a few years with not only Harper, but then our youngest as well, Nora, that we had while I was at home. And so I
Wow.
got to hang out with them and just be a mom and pour into them for the first few years of their life. But then, as Nick pointed out, I also realized that I was not a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Sure.
That was
Yeah.
also not me. I commend the people that are, because that is incredibly difficult. But I needed and I wanted something a little bit different. And so I actually did get my real estate license and sold, and still do, but sold real estate kind of on the side. And that was a really perfect job at that time, again, to do that balance of being able to be home with my kids and take them to their field trips and take them to the Children's Museum on Wednesday in the middle of the day and just hang out with them, but then also have a little something for myself in my professional capacity.
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice. But that worked out well for us during those few years.
Well, I think that, well, two things. I can't imagine what a crazy just leap of faith that was for first selling the house after you built it and then to leave your, you were climbing the ladder, really. You were doing all the things, the American dream of like chasing your career and just really look at your priorities and be like, this is not my priority. Like that's a really big faith leap. I love that you were obedient to what was put in your heart.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate what you said about you needed, like you felt like you had this drive to go back to work. Because I think that's okay too. I kind of felt like that during maternity leave and stuff with our youngest. I was like, gosh, I love to work. And like, I think it's okay to, use your gifts and your skills and to be, to want to, use that for, the good of the world too, outside of the home. Yeah. So I appreciate your sharing that.
Yeah. I think, you just have to find out what works for you and your family. And it's different for every person and it's different for every family.
Right.
Too, know, and that was, so you just have to, so again, back to the priorities, just sitting down together and determining what those are for yourself and your family and getting on the same page with them. Yeah. And then also just being intentional about making choices that align with those priorities because you can set priorities and you can talk about priorities, but unless you're intentional about the choices you're making that align with those priorities, it's very difficult, very easy in today's world to kind of get sucked into things that probably or that maybe don't fit with those priorities.
Sure. Yeah. You can say one thing, but your actions are what's evidence of that. Yeah. So how do you guys think that having kids has impacted your marriage, both for the good and maybe on the challenging side? And how do you deal with that?
Do you want to start?
Sure. I can start this one. It's been an amazing gift to have kids, but it's also been a challenge for our relationship. So it's awesome to be able to come together and serve our kids together and be a family. So all four of us together, and we're constantly doing stuff. The challenging part is finding time for the two of us to be able to get out and actually have dates and not lose ourselves. So I came from a family whose parents were divorced when I was in middle school. Basically, it's kind of the story of when the kids started to become independent, the parents didn't realize what to do with each other. Right. And it's something that we've been working on or being more intentional with spending time together, even if it's not going on necessarily dates every week. That is a lot of extra pressure to do. Sure. It's like, we have to go on a date. Wait a minute. but finding those the joy in the little things, even folding laundry for me, who quality time is one of my love languages. Nice. So folding laundry together or even watching a show together. Like last night we turned on a show and we just sat and we're together and present with each other is something that's a gift that's not necessarily a date, but it's quality time that can still be spent together. Before we had kids, I think we, at least for me, we weren't intentional with the time that we had, so we had a lot more extra time.
Sure.
And weren't intentional with like actually talking when we sat down, and it wasn't a good situation. So they've been a huge blessing, and it's been so fun to see the kids growing up and being able to be parents has been one of the biggest blessings that we've ever had. So
cool. And I think it gives you something else to focus on rather than yourself, right? You have your kids, and you're trying to take someone else's needs and emotions and everything into check, and so it just helps you to be a little just more aware of like other people and their needs rather than yourself. Sure. We didn't always do that the best at the beginning of our marriage. So.
Very true.
Do you guys do you want to elaborate on that? Like how so?
Yeah. So you talked about seasons, and I just kind of giggled because we had a season when we got married when we were 23 and 24.
Okay, pretty young.
So do the math.
Right out of college.
I'll be 40 here in a couple months. Anyway, so we after about a year, we ended up moving up to the Twin Cities, and Allie went into law school, and the focus was school. Let's get through school and move on with our careers and things like that. And unfortunately, during that time, we started going on this path in this season of we're okay with being in the same spot, but we really didn't communicate. So we were basically turned into roommates at that point. Yeah. And we had I don't know if you want to tell the story of pick up where So we had one point where we kind of looked at each other and were like, does this make sense to even be together? Because it's not really it's more of just a mutual, like, hey, we're just kind of living together and it just is what it is thing.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
And I mean, to Nick's point, being our focus was on school. My focus was on school and being successful and doing well in school so I could get a good job. Nick's focus was probably working and providing for us so that I could get through school. And through that, we did not, like Keith always says, if things aren't right here, things aren't right here.
Yeah.
And that was
And
the
just for our
epitome of
listeners,
that.
here being the first here being up with our relationship with Christ, and then the second here out horizontal, like with the world. If our things aren't going up to our Father, right? Then living
if
it
our
out.
focus isn't here, we're not gonna. Everything is going to feel like chaotic and disorganized here because our priorities are not in the right spot.
Yeah.
And I can tell, at least I can speak for myself during that time, this was not at all in alignment.
Sure.
So it was causing all sorts of chaos here because my priorities were just not in the right spot. And thankfully we had that frank discussion, and thankfully he had a level head, and we had a plan of moving forward that we still wanted to stay together and make it work, and we did. And it was a tough time.
Wow.
But I wouldn't change it for the world because it's made our relationship so much stronger going through that and having experienced something like that.
Yeah. Were there specific things that you did when you had that conversation, you made that decision, like, no, we want to stick this out? Like, what did you do? And in last week's episode, we had Bob Paul, the vice president of the Focus Marriage Institute, and he spoke about something similar. So if you didn't catch that episode, go back and listen to that because we're going to touch on that topic too. But what did you guys do?
we actually started therapy together. And we started with a therapist. I think Ellie had found this individual person. And it was crazy because we sat down, and the first time that we got in the room, I don't know if you remember this, but it was a straight couch. One sat here and the other one sat here. And she just started talking. She goes, "It's not my job to talk to you into staying married, but it's my job to basically moderate." And she started talking to us and had us telling the story, and then had us talk about the things that we fell in love with the other one. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be the things that we fell in love with were the things that we were most annoyed with at that point.
Wow.
And I'm like, so her independence and her being able to tell me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear, was something that drew me to her initially.
Sure.
Like she makes me a better person because she's able to call me out in different things when I'm not being the smartest thing. I'm trying to be nice to myself. But she does an amazing job at that. But when you're not level-headed and when your relationship's not strong and you can't take that criticism, my tendency was to fight back and be like, "God, can she ever just stop?" And it turned out like she did a really nice job of moderating so that we could actually talk together.
I mean, that was the ultimate result, was like, she's like, you guys just don't talk to each other.
Wow.
We were not talking to each other. So we would have these frustrations and have these feelings, but we wouldn't tell each other what we were feeling or what we were frustrated with. So how is he supposed to know what is causing me to have frustrations and anxieties and frustrations if I don't tell him, And it's such a small thing that you're like, duh.
Yeah.
Right? But when you're doing it and when you're in the middle of it, it's just so easy to forget that, and just constantly be focused on how you're feeling, what hurts you're experiencing, what frustrations you're experiencing, but not how can you take action to make it better,
right?
And take ownership of that. And it was just such a simple thing that once she said it, for some reason, at one point, it just like clicked. And she made us do homework, like, we had our homework to communicate and these activities we had to do, which were super awkward at first, but so good because it got us to talk, and those are lessons that now we carry us with us through our relationship. So sometimes therapy has just got this big like taboo on it, but I 100% recommend that for anyone. Obviously, who we saw was in Minneapolis, so she's not here, but I just think that that's such a nice, sometimes you just need a neutral party to see what's going on because you're so in it and you can't realize what's going on. We might have totally derailed that, but
that's so good.
So good.
I feel like that's
such
rich content too. Like that's just such I don't know. Thanks for the vulnerability and sharing that. Like, that's really good. I hope it encourages other listeners to, maybe take that step. And we talked about that a few weeks back about this mind reading. Like, we just, I gave a story about this mascara example, and I was like, I just wanted Ryan to know, it's like, but they don't.
And I don't.
Yeah. You don't know about mascara, Ryan?
No,
Okay.
no. You guys have talked about this a lot, about priorities. One of the things, Nick, that you mentioned is the family that you grew up in was that, we focus on the kids, and then when the kids become independent, you have a husband and wife that don't know each other. And we hear it a lot of, we have practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we have a game on Saturday, and we might see each other on Sunday. Like, I mean, honestly, it's reality, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody or talk negative about anything. It's just part of we see this a lot of there's this focus of running and they don't make their marriage a priority. And then when the kids grow up or the kids leave, you've got two strangers that don't know each other.
Right.
They've been so focused on kids and activities and things like that. What is it, what does it look like for you guys daily or weekly or whatever it is to set those priorities? And then what does it look like, to still be able to do the activities? Because it's a fun part of life to see your kids play and have fun, but also to keep your marriage strong, to keep your relationship strong, to have that time together.
Yeah. We're still working on that. I'm just going to throw it out there that that's one thing that we've talked about, like we need to get better at. But like I was saying before, I think too many people put pressure on themselves of, well, I have to do X amount of time. I have to do the dates every week.
It has to be like the grand date, like an actual going out to a restaurant or going to a movie, and it has to be something big like that.
Yeah. And it kind of depends on each person, but what's helped us a lot is actually sending calendar invites for different things.
Sure. Get on the calendar.
And for real, like that's what it's probably helped our communication more than anything that we've done in the last couple of years, because it helps, like we know where practices are and we know like, hey, who's going to pick up whom. And then at the end of the day, because we have two girls that are in different things, and now that we have grandma in town, it makes it a little easier for us. But we've had to be intentional with those 20-minute little pieces of time to be able to spend together. So one of the things I told you, quality time is a big deal for me. So if I can come home, she works from home. It's a remote job. So if I can come home in the middle of the day to say hello and spend 20 minutes with her, like that's just an easy thing that I wouldn't have naturally thought about, that I'm like, okay, I need to be intentional with this. But it's just finding those little snippets of time to be able to spend together, to make sure that you do those quick check-ins. Like, hey, are we okay? What's going on? How you feeling? How can I help you? How can we help each other? And don't put so much pressure on that. Well, we got to go on a date. We have to spend $300 on food, because going out on a date is expensive anymore. Especially with getting a babysitter. Holy cannoli.
Sure.
But it's being intentional with every little time that we have has been really important to our relationship.
Yeah, it's also I'm early to bed. So like I want to be in bed by like 9 p.m. at the latest. And he's usually up well past that. So it's just making the choices like, okay, well, I would maybe prefer to go to bed right now, but I'll, stay up a little bit later and we'll talk or do something together. The other thing that I always appreciate is like Nick never leaves the house without giving me a kiss and telling me he loves me, no matter what. Even if we're mad at each other, even if we're in a fight, like he won't do that, because, he just wants me to know that even though we're in fight and even though we're upset, like he still loves me and we're going to be fine and we'll work it out.
Because you just never know, right?
Right. You just never know, for sure.
That's great.
Yeah. But I think that's the point, is just in the crazy times where you literally probably only have 20 minutes, just make those 20 minutes useful and intentional and doing that. Or finding time in the middle of the day to grab coffee, or even if it's for a 20-minute coffee. Or I know you guys do something like that, don't you? I think I remember hearing you,
lunch has been kind of that same concept of like, oh, you need to go out and but sometimes like, hey, let's have lunch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like we both eat lunch.
Right.
Like, let's just do it together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I think it's so good. I think it's priorities and it's finding the time that is there. Because we all have time on our schedule, and it's just how you spend it, what your priority is. So, a couple things as we're wrapping up here. Just kind of, we have 3 questions that we'd like to ask our guests, just kind of rapid fire. You don't need to think about them. Just kind of rapid fire. First kind of thing that comes to your head. What's your marriage why? Like why is marriage important to you?
Oh my gosh, me? You're going to make me go on the spot. Why is marriage important to me? Well, it's God ordained, God defined. We're supposed to be together and procreate, and that's our marriage. Why is to be together and to worship the Lord and raise kids that are going to worship the Lord and are going to change the world for the Lord.
That's great.
Wow,
that's great, Ellie.
I can't be that. See, that's why
So
I defer
good.
to her.
That's great.
I'm going to defer to her for everything.
All right. Number 2, best date night.
Ooh, best date night.
Oh,
Well, it's
man.
different for both of us because we used to be the movie, dinner and a movie. That's
Every time. Yep. That
we
was
haven't really done that in a long time. But dinner and a movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Both
We
of you.
both,
We're
we both
kind of
love that.
boring, but
We are kind of
That's
boring.
all right.
I would say either dinner movie or like a sporting event movie.
Yeah.
Like go to a Stampede game or
Cool.
Augie basketball, Augie football, or Hoggy hockey now.
Yeah.
We're
there you
both
go.
always Santa
Doggy,
grads.
doggy.
So
There you go.
yeah.
Awesome. And then lastly, what's bringing you joy in your marriage right now?
Watching him be the awesome girl dad
Aw.
to our girls, and just him being such a good representative of what they should be seeking in a husband. Like it just makes me warms my heart and just makes me feel so happy and content that they are seeing that as an example for when they grow up and they're looking for a husband.
Yeah.
Beat that.
Oh man.
Did she mic drop? You can't even mic drop with these things.
Exactly.
But it's true. It's true.
I would just say that we're it's been really fun. We are blessed with 2 amazing daughters, and we get to pray together with them every night as a family, most nights as a family, and eat together and do all the things that I kind of want to. I just asked my team yesterday, would you rather have a rewind button or a pause button? And I said, without a doubt, I finished off the question. I said, for me, without a doubt, it's a pause because I can't taking in every snapshot, every moment that we possibly can it's been something that brings me a lot of joy.
That's so good. So good. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the Celebrate Marriage Cast.
Thank you so much. That was so fun. Thank you for joining us on the Celebrate Marriage Cast. If you would like additional help or resources for your marriage, please check out celebrate.church/marriage. We hope you have an amazing week, and we will see you again for 5 Minute Friday. Be sure to subscribe and share this with a friend as well. Have a great week.